Welcome to the Films for Breakfast podcast. My name's Adam Sidorius, and do you feel that in the air? It's another the tides are changing. It's the release of more content. It's
Another
the
Kevin
more
Feige production.
we dreamed of times like this where we're back. Last year we got one singular Marvel Studios joint, and now we're finally back with Captain America and I was about to say the Winter Soldier. No, that's the show. The movie is called Brave New World. And I am joined once again by my good friend. I text him. I'm like, hey, you're one of the only people I know going to the screening. Can you please come on the pod for it? He says, no questions asked. Yes, let's do it. Ernest Calderon, how are you doing, buddy?
I need you to trust me one last time. Oh, wait, that's a different movie that's coming out this year.
But that is
Hi.
Kevin Feige to the audience every single time a movie comes out.
I'm so glad to be back already on this feed. We're doing something a little special here, a little bit of a cross pod. If you're watching on the We Bought a Mic YouTube, a video special. And if you're listening on the Films for Breakfast feed, thanks for having me back. Very excited to cover another Marvel movie that we just saw.
Yes, we
Fresh,
literally
instant reaction.
yes, we literally less than an hour ago we saw the movie. We like drove home separately, hopped on Zoom. This is like fresh out of the theater. And also no reviews have dropped yet as of the time we're recording. So we're not influenced by any other opinion. So either like one of us may be right or wrong given the consensus, and we're just gonna openly say it. Although I feel like Ernest may be in the majority here. But
It's
I
rare that we get something this like I guess unbiased. Because
yes,
usually
I
there are rumblings. Like there are, I mean, obviously there are rumblings with this movie. This is a huge movie. Very, very like
yeah.
well documented, tumultuous pre-production that we'll get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, as of this recording, no official reviews have dropped. The embargo is tomorrow as of this recording. So you're getting it fresh. You're getting it instant. You're getting it as unvarnished as something like this can be for guys that are super plugged in to the movie
Yeah.
world.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I feel like I know your stance on like Marvel in general. We have a lot of conversations about it, but just for like the average like listener or viewer, like what is your relationship with the MCU, which I know is kind of a loaded question. It's been around for like 15, 20 years at this point. And also, did you watch The Falcon and Winter Soldier? And if so, what were expectations for this movie?
Well, I'm very honored to be on this episode, your first Marvel movie on this new
Yeah.
show that you're doing, because it's a brave new world, Adam. Like, it's a fresh podcast feed, it's a new year, it's a new Captain America, so the possibilities are maybe not endless, but bountiful, you know?
Yeah.
And I am the type of movie fan and the type of comic book fan and the type of Marvel fan who is always very ready to be heartbroken and willing to constantly put myself out there and be vulnerable and say, you know what? You can break my heart. I'm ready to be hurt again. And that's kind of what I'm feeling coming out of this movie. But to answer your question about Marvel in general, obviously I'm a big fan, growing up reading comics, loving Spider-Man, picking up the comic books as like a teenager at the local Barnes and Noble and sitting down at the coffee shop area and not paying for them, and then putting them back on the shelf after reading them. So sorry to all the struggling Barnes and Nobles, the small business owners of Barnes and Noble, for not
Yes.
purchasing your comic books. Um, but yeah, I feel like with a lot of people, similar to a lot of people, it all peaked with Endgame for me. It was
Right.
years, a decade of buildup, and then it really felt like a home run with Endgame. And then ever since then, that was 2019. It feels like it's like slowly started to peter out, and we keep grasping for little bits and pieces, a multiverse of madness here, a a Wakanda Forever there, maybe a Loki or two, to try to feel that feeling again of those highs, of
Yeah.
the run, the 10-year epic run that Marvel had. Um, and so, we can get into the nitty-gritty of like the state of the MCU and all of that, and what this movie means. But me personally, I feel like, what I like to say all the time is I love my slop. I love to eat my slop. And as a 30-year-old man now, it is becoming a little bit harder to stomach it as it
Yeah.
goes on. So I will say, Adam, like, hold on to your youth. Us old men, it's not easy being an old Marvel fan. But I don't know. Maybe as we do this conversation, I'll be a little bit more uh able to kind of unpack where I'm at right now with Marvel, because I feel very conflicted. I don't
Right.
think it's
Yeah.
like a clear-cut thing, like we're so back or it's so over, or I love it or I hate it. It's in flux right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's ever changing. I mean, and um I feel like that's something that's been widely reported on like from like Variety and like Hollywood Reporter, all those like op-eds that they're doing with like they're making it very clear that Kevin Feige and company like know like the consensus. They're not dumb. They know what's going on. They know they are losing the kind of trust, the audience trust that was so prevalent that got Endgame to like what $2 billion or whatever. That's was solely based off the trust that you established over like the 10 years up until that point of MCU, starting with the first Iron Man. I'm very similar to you in the sense that I the first time I saw Iron Man in theaters opening weekend and I was 10 when it came out. So a perfect age to watch Iron Man. And by the time the Avengers came out, I was like 13, 14. And it was like, it just changed my life seeing the Avengers. Because I love the first Captain America, I love Thor, I loved Iron Man. But as with like the rest of the world, when I saw the Avengers, which I remember I went to an early screening of that, well before I was a press member, obviously as a teenager, I waited in line with like a GoFobo ticket. Um, for hours, got in to the IMAX theater at Regal Waterford Lakes in Orlando. The movie started like an hour late due to projection issues. By the time it was over, no one gave a shit. It was like a rock concert in there. It was like things changed, And then yeah, I have a notorious reputation with my friends that I am the defender of most Marvel content.
You're a lover.
Anyone,
You love to
I'm a
love.
lover. But I will say, and I think, even my friends that label me that, I'm not a blind lover because I do criticize where I find it necessary. Like I haven't really enjoyed a lot of the most recent shows they've done. Like Agatha, Echo, What If, you know, there's a lot. The movies, Quantumania, Love and Thunder, the Marvels, I thought were all huge whiffs. Even like Multiverse of Madness, which I did enjoy. I thought some of the Raimiisms were good. Like, there's also like a lot of script issues with that movie. So yeah, I think the only like real like high ceiling post Endgame has been for me, No Way Home. I still really enjoy, and Guardians 3, which I thought was fantastic. Otherwise, it's been and Wakanda Forever. I like that too. But otherwise, it's been very rocky. I think, and even the most hardcore fans would like have a hard time
It's
arguing
been rough.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with the sentiment that there is a lot riding on this movie. Not even just for the fact of like the price tag, which it's been like reported it's like $170 million budget or something, which is nuts to me. That's almost as much as an Avengers movie costs. So
It's all those
yeah, there's a
reshoots. They remade it like 8 times.
yeah, and I feel bad in a sense, as bad as you can feel for a multi-million-dollar film backed by Disney. I trust me, I'm not losing any sleep. But that being said, my empathy does stretch a little bit to like, Anthony Mackie and company who are seemingly put in this position where they can't just make a movie about their characters. They almost have to prove something in regards to the universe as a whole and whether it's still sustainable. and whether or not you should be excited for the next Avengers movie and all these things. So I tried when going into the screening tonight to try to take out all those preconceived expectations of like what I want this to be, what I need this to be, and say like, hey, I just want like another good story of Sam Wilson because I enjoyed Falcon Winter Soldier for what it was. Has a lot of issues. The villain falls apart at the end, a little janky, some bad dialogue at times, but overall, I enjoyed it. And just to get into it, I had a good time with this movie. I don't think it's the complete like Hail Mary win that Marvel needs at the moment. But this is gonna sound like such a backhanded compliment. It's the least pissed off I've been by them in a really long time. Because I feel like even watching like like the Marvels or Love and Thunder or something, I just like left those movies being like, oh God. I'm like, what are we doing? Have we truly lost the sauce this badly? Watching this, well, and yes, it has a lot of issues that we'll get into. I was just pleasantly surprised at how much like a normal movie it feels like. Solid performances, some fun action scenes, nothing too deep plot wise, but I thought it was engaging enough. And under 2 hours, I was in and out. I left
Yeah,
satisfied.
mercifully short.
Mercifully short. And yes, you can feel the reshoots all over this thing. I am not denying that one bit. It's very choppy, but for just like a blockbuster release, as a Marvel fan, I had a good time with it. I don't know what else to say. I thought it was a pretty fun movie.
Um, so you mentioned sitting there, uh, anticipating the movie. We sat next to each other and
Yes.
we were chatting right before it started. And I remember turning to you and saying, like, I don't know what to expect from this movie. I feel like I've been burned by expecting anything from the last couple Marvel movies, especially Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, if you go back and you listen to the review that I did with Hunter about that movie last year, a lot of my quibbles with that movie were based on my maybe unfair expectations for what I wanted that movie to be and what it ended up
Right.
not being. Um, and I'm at a point right now where I just feel like I shouldn't expect anything from these movies, which puts me in a tough spot because then it's just like, what am I, if I'm not expecting anything, what am I to take if the movie um gives me something that doesn't resonate with me, right? Like
Yeah.
I I don't think every movie has to be thematically resonant or like artistically profound. We can
Right.
have Red Hulk punch Captain America and have a good time. Like that's definitely a possibility, but I just could not get past so many of the problems that this movie obviously has. And it's tough because we don't know the extent of the production of this thing. We know a lot, and we know a lot has been reported. And there is actually, you mentioned it before we start recording, a pretty lengthy Wikipedia subsection that outlines all of the production troubles that went down, and now the movie's here. It feels like a miracle that it's actually coming out after all these reshoots and delays and trouble. So, you know, I don't I don't know how much I can rag on it and how much I can knock it down, but I didn't think it was very successful. And I I feel like right now, like, you know, literally just an hour after walking out of the theater, it feels like bottom tier Marvel to me. It feels like one of the weakest efforts they've put out, incredibly contrived and kind of boring at times. Um, I did like Harrison Ford a lot, and
Yeah.
we'll get into, what goes down with that character, the little bit of an arc that he has. I thought that he put in good work. I thought that if you're gonna watch this movie and try to find some semblance of like a good acting, good performance, like you're gonna get a good bit
Yeah,
out of Ford as the William Hurt character. Um, Rest in peace to William Hurt,
yeah.
who played Thaddeus Ross in the previous Marvel movies. So he's coming in to fill those shoes, and I think he does a really good job in doing so. A lot of fun with his character, but it just wasn't enough for me. I think too much of this movie feels again very contrived and very much it sucks to say this because the promise of the MCU of bringing these comics to life on the screen was to make it feel like anything could happen. Like the world was open and you could have Iron Man come into a Spider-Man movie. You could have the Hulk come into a Thor movie. You could have all of these possibilities uh and have all these characters bounce around each other, and we had this established world where we would welcome those types of developments. And now all these years in and all these movies in, this is what, the 32nd, 33rd movie or something.
I can't even
I
keep up anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the count is at, but it might be closer to like 35. This might be the 35th actually, if we do
Jesus.
the full count. It feels like the box is getting smaller. It feels
Yeah.
like they need to connect all of these dots in a very specific way, and they're putting themselves in these corners that make this world feel smaller and smaller and smaller. And I don't think it's a total disaster. I don't think it's a total disappointment. But again, how could I be disappointed if I'm trying not to have any expectations going into
Right.
this? Overall, I didn't think it was very good.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. I mean, I feel like I didn't talk to a ton of critics on the way out, but I do feel like that was largely the sentiment that I could garner. I mean, the best reaction I heard was, yeah, that was all right. You know what I mean? Like that's the best I heard on the way out. Um, so just to kind of lay the ground, like the takes place after the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I believe debuted in 2022, early 2022. And it takes place like 3 years after that exactly in real time. And yeah, so he's fully taken on the mantle of Captain America now. He's doing missions, somewhat for the government, somewhat on his own terms. And he has Torres, who was established in that show as his Falcon, now riding with him. And the movie begins with like a pretty basic like action sequence mission type beat to kind of establish where they are at this point. Just put you back in the mood. I will say it does feel very thematically similar to that show. So if you enjoyed that show, I think it's pretty in tone with that. You
Yeah.
also have like Isaiah Bradley from that show, played by the same actor, returning. And yeah, it doesn't take long for, like you mentioned, Harrison Ford. I mean, the opening sequence was literally Harrison Ford giving a speech. And so, yeah, you get introduced to him fairly quickly as Thunderbolt Ross. And it connects all the dots right away, kind of sets up the roadmap of what to expect from the story, the confines of it, and everything. And yeah, the central conflict is just that there is like an assassination attempt on the president, who is now President Ross, and he kind of puts out like a probe of like investigation of like, hey, how did this happen? Who knew about it? Am I infiltrated? Is my team safe? Like what's going on? And Captain America is kind of just put at odds with him, and it's just without spoiling too much. We'll talk about spoilers a little bit later. He just kind of has to navigate that and investigate without stepping on any toes too often. And I don't want to spoil the characters that are in it, just in case. I mean, they're in the trailer, but I still want to be vague, just in case someone hasn't had it spoiled. There's characters that connect to very old Marvel movies in here, and yeah, it's not. I was texting my good pal Murphy after it was over, and I was like, I had a good time, but plot wise, especially, I can't imagine any of this makes sense to anyone who is not like just
Right.
terminally online with this shit. Because the movies that it tries to connect to and the shows that it tries to connect to is it's asking a lot of the audience. Now, granted, they do a lot of you know setting up with that. They do a lot of flashbacks to that kind of shit. So you kind of remember like it does its best to kind of re-jog your memory, but it's still asking a lot of the audience to call back to films and TV shows, and it feels like it's spinning a lot of plates, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But and I do admit this makes it messy, and you can feel the reshoots within it. But I think what I enjoyed about it is that it does also, on the opposite of that, have a very fast pace to it. It's very well paced. I thought it moved from like each set piece pretty well. And I thought the connecting scenes of like political intrigue, while not quite Winter Soldier levels at all, don't get me wrong, it was compelling enough, especially because of Harrison Ford's performance, to where I was pretty engaged. I thought him and Mackie had like really good rapport with each other. Like you said, R.I.P. William Hurt. I thought he was really good as Ross back when he was doing it, but Harrison Ford just really owns this role, and
He's
he
one of the
takes what
greats.
yeah, he takes what William Hurt did, and with like his appearances in like Civil War and Incredible Hulk and Infinity War and everything, and gives like new meaning to his actions in those movies as Ross, where a lot of, I mean, pretty much all the Avengers hate Ross, as a character. And one of the very first things someone asks, Wilson in this movie is like, hey, like, why are you working for him? Like, he completely fucked over the Avengers. And I feel like that sets the tone for the movie and like the message of the movie, which I feel is also ties into just like Sam as a character, something I've really enjoyed after rewatching Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and also I rewatched The Falcon and Winter Soldier over the course of the last month, which is that Sam's superpower is his empathy and his ability to de-escalate situations with his words and his heart and understanding rather than completely trying to like fight people all the time. And I feel like this movie, while again messy, and I do have issues with the script at points, it does get to the heart of why he is Captain America at this point in time and why Steve chose him. And I found those elements of the film pretty compelling, especially when it's put at odds with both what Ross is mandating as a president, but also all the villainous shenanigans that we'll get more into with spoilers. I thought it was all these elements, while not completely aligned and not always the most fluidly, placed together, it was still enough to keep me entertained and engaged. And I will say the emotional crux of like the third act actually did work for me. I actually did find that to be, I'm not like crying or anything over Brave New World, but I felt what it was going for, I could say, to the point of where I'm excited to see him, lead the team in Doomsday. Like I'm excited to see where he goes from here, I will say.
That's the next one, isn't it? That's supposed to come out next year.
Yeah, I mean, after the
The run
slate
this
this
year.
year,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's so crazy. Well, I really want to get to spoilers to really dig into everything, but I'll just say not a non-spoilery because a lot of my more kind of meaty thoughts are just the
agreed.
specifics. Um that I really do feel very conflicted about my place as a Marvel fan right now.
Yeah,
Um, this is the fourth Captain America movie, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that. It feels like another episode in this series, never-ending series. And it, like we were saying earlier, kind of does feel like this bit of a reset, a bit of a restart. And I don't know exactly what I want from this series right now. I don't feel like I can comfortably slot this alongside a Winter Soldier or a Civil War. Um,
right.
it just, I don't know. It doesn't feel completely in line with that. It feels more in line with like the Marvels and
Yes.
Thor Love and Thunder. There's just something about it that feels a little bit cheaper, a little bit more disposable, a little bit less labored over and really thought through. Um Despite like the massive price tag on this movie, the massive budget that it costs, I didn't really see it on screen. I mean, there are
Mm,
moments where it does look good. There are some good action beats. There's some good special effects here and there, but there were for the majority, I was kind of left wondering like, why doesn't this feel bigger? I
yeah.
don't know. Maybe I was younger. I was a younger man like watching The Winter Soldier, but I was more amazed by that movie. Even I always think about the first Avengers movie, the Joss Whedon
Yeah.
movie. Like that movie blew me away. And I know a lot of people go back and watch that movie now and say that it's not as good and that it feels cheap and that it feels like a made for TV movie. I don't agree with that. Yeah, some of the costumes are campy and kind of silly, but there was this grand excitement to that movie and I don't know, it didn't feel like obligatory. A
Yeah.
lot of this movie feels like they're just checking all these boxes and going through the motions. And it's not entirely like that. Like there are these pockets where it does find a certain humanity and a certain uh rhythm of an actual like soul of a real movie. It does happen here and there, but the majority of it, I was just kind of left wondering, like, what's what's in this that isn't just fulfilling a release date for the shareholders.
Right.
It's like,
No, yeah. I mean, I agree. And I mean, it's hard to not like talk about this in the larger context of like the movies they've done post Endgame. Because I mean, going back to that, I mean, that's what it's felt like for the last several years. I mean, after Endgame, and also you got to mention the COVID of it all. Like after during COVID, that 2020, the year without any Marvel content, really starved people, and I feel like that put like a huge expectation for like the incoming slew of not only films but Disney Plus shows and specials and all that. So when it became a disappointment, there was almost like I feel like a denial period with people, like where we were like, oh no, Love and Thunder, it's gonna be great. Oh no, Quantumania, this is the one. We're back. We're so back. Like, and it's been a trial and error. I don't think everything they've done post Endgame has been bad. By no means, I don't
well,
think
let's
that.
let's
But
look at it real quick because this might interest people if they haven't, if you're listening to this before seeing Brave New World, maybe this is useful. Uh, Spoiler free talk. So it's what the multiverse saga is what they're
the
calling
multiverse
it.
saga. Yep.
Phase 4, Phase 5, and the incoming Phase 6, which I guess is starting with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
So Phase 4 was Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And now Phase 5 is Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Marvels, Deadpool and Wolverine, Captain America Brave New World, and then Thunderbolts. So those
Right.
are 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 movies. This is the 12th movie post Endgame.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to count Spider-Man or Far From Home, uh,
Yeah.
you could
That's a
count that
weird
in there
one
because
because
that's
it's kind
right
of in the
after
middle.
Endgame. Yeah.
Right.
I
This
I
one's
I
yeah.
honestly I don't love lumping in Spider-Man into this because that feels more like a Sony thing, even though
I
it's like
agree.
within the continuity of Marvel.
Yeah.
It's like more of like a Sony production. But I guess it's listed on here. If you go on the
Right, for
Wikipedia,
the
it's on there.
right.
And then what's it called? Guardians 3. in my head, I just think that's a James Gunn movie. But
No, I mean that's one of the only
obviously,
real movies they've made. Like I feel like I can say that while also enjoying the slop at the same time, where that largely feels like an actual movie with like themes and like performances and colors and costumes and like just like actual like real movie shit. I as far as this goes, because after just like reading off the recent films in each phase, one caught my ear because I think it's the perfect comparison to how I feel about this. I think I feel exactly with this movie how I do about like Black Widow. A complete like 3 out of 5. Like, yeah, that's a very small contained character piece that I enjoyed in spades. You can feel the reshoots, you can feel a little bit of missed opportunity, but like I largely did enjoy it. And I feel like the same way, like you could copy and paste, like and just like switch out the character names. And I think I feel pretty much the same about each movie.
in my head, I think Black Widow did more for the characters. My memory of that movie, I
Right.
think I only saw it the one time. I haven't rewatched it. Um, in my memory, we spent more time with like the family and like
Right.
Florence Pugh and David Harbour and Rachel Weisz and like really getting to know them as characters. That doesn't really happen in this movie. The majority of this movie is characters like saying the plot to each other and like recapping the plot of like previous movies and like the Falcon show. That's
Yeah.
mostly what we're seeing. And there are moments where we're not seeing that and we're actually like getting to know these people as people, or having like a real conflict or a real character moment. Um, those moments are incredibly brief. And when they happen, they are good. And that's when the
Yeah.
movie is good. But it's way too infrequent. It's way too rare. And especially for a movie this short, for you to
Yes.
only have a couple of scenes and a couple of moments when that happens, we like actually connect with these characters and are reminded of like why these movies were good in the first place. Why like one of the most memorable scenes in the entire MCU is the Avengers just hanging out in Avengers Tower in Age of Ultron, just trying to lift the hammer. Like, why is
Yeah.
that one of the most uh, remembered moments in all of these movies? It's not them punching the robots at the end of Ultron and Sokovia. That's not the moment that sticks. It's them having a drink and partying and being cool.
Yeah.
That's the Where is that? What
Yeah. I
happened to
mean,
that?
no, and I agree. I think that is something that, and that is a benefit to a large criticism I've seen of the MCU as of late has been the fact that we haven't had that like establishing relationship Avenger movie post in game to lead into the finale that is like Doomsday slash Secret Wars. I kind of agree with that sentiment. I think you could have really benefited from like just like an Ultron or a original Avengers type beat that actually put Sam and Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange together, like establishing a real connection there before you get into the meat of Secret Wars. I think that would have been really a wise choice because then you have scenes like that. It also scenes like that in the Avengers movies pave way for more solid character movies like Iron Man 3. I always go back to it, which is a really solid, personal, kind of small scale superhero story, but it's elevated because it's Tony dealing with his PTSD from the Battle of New York from the Avengers. Like it's a perfect, like, amalgamation of larger world things, but also smaller Shane Blackisms. That, it works. It's like a really solid entry into that. I mean, I do agree. That is one thing about this is that it does feel very small in comparison. It does feel like it has like a Disney Plus size to it. Yet we saw like on an IMAX screen, so that was like kind of like, I see it there. I like it's saved for like the set piece where you're um flying around like the Eternal, like the select. That's not a spoiler. It's like all over Twitter and the trailers, and I'd be surprised if I spoiled that for anybody. But there's a large action sequence that involves you're flying around the Celestial that emerged from the Earth in Eternals, and that's the only real moment other than like the Red Hulk stuff that it feels like it's breaking the confines of what I saw in the Disney Plus show. Um, but I I think I just maybe it's because I just rewatched that show, and I never really rewatch shows ever, but I just did feel compelled to redo it because there was something about that show that stuck with me where I remember feeling that it was really rough around the edges, but there was like a sincerity to the story and Sam as Cap and Bucky's character arc that I did find compelling at the end of the day. And upon rewatching it, I kind of feel the same way. I think the villain, like the Flag Smashers, are really weak, but I just really enjoy Sam, and I think Isaiah Bradley's like character arc and that is really solid.
Yeah, Isaiah Bradley
I do,
is great, and he's great in this movie. One of the
yeah,
best parts
he's
of the
really
movie.
good. Yeah, he's largely kind of the heart of the film. Again, just like he was in the show. I mean, a lot of without getting into spoilers or anything, like it puts a lot of like trust in him as a character and how much you feel for him and his situation. And also like his past with the mantle of Captain America. That well, I think they could have done a bit more, especially considering how good he was in the show. I did find it effective, but again, it's hard because I do want to go to spoilers because it's kind of hard to like
We should just get into
walk
it.
on eggshells. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, before we transition, overall, I usually give a rating out of five. I would give this like a solid 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. A lot of issues. We'll get into more of it in spoilers, but I enjoyed the slop. What can I say? I had a good time.
I gotta go 2 out of 5, maybe 2.5
Yeah.
if I sleep on it and like the good stuff sticks and the bad stuff doesn't.
Right.
But I don't know, man. There were some scenes, we're about to get to it once we get to spoilers, where I was like, this is so bad. Like this is like half a star. This is like maybe 1 star. Uh and it was real tough. But there's enough good in there that I feel like I can't go that low. Um
Yeah.
so I'll say 2 for now. I mean, whenever I look at like my letterbox list of all the Marvel movies, I look at that bottom row and I start to reconsider a lot of the stuff I put down there, like Iron Man
Yeah.
2 and The Incredible Hulk, which funny enough really ties into this movie. Um,
Really, it does. Yeah.
the
You gotta do your homework.
Marvels. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and watch Louis Leterrier's masterpiece. So
Not
yeah.
Fast X.
No, no, no. Although I may
um,
have to rewatch that going into Fast X 2.
yeah, Fast Duo, Fast 2X. Yeah, yeah, we'll get into spoilers. I would recommend if you haven't seen it, turn away now. Only listen, or if you don't care, I guess that's fine. But yeah, we're gonna go full spoilers now. So I mean I agree with the sentiment that this is very messy. You can feel the reshoots from a mile away. It the way dude, I don't even know where to start. Like when it comes to like the leader and his plans, now I will say played wonderfully by the great Tim Blake Nelson. He is having a ball
He's
here.
good.
I think the prosthetic like makeup is actually really solid. I think he looks really creepy. And I think it works. The score that plays every time he's on screen, I really liked, and I
Yeah, it
kind of
was
got
fun.
giddy
It was fun. I mean,
every time he popped up. I liked it. Yeah,
I wanted a little bit more of that energy in the movie. I wanted the movie to get a
yeah,
little bit sillier, a little bit weirder. I did like that the movie tried to take itself seriously, and I think that that's what
yeah,
you were getting at with the comparisons to the TV show, where that TV show it it really does kind of do the thing of like we're going to tell a story about a black man becoming Captain America. And that's what this story is going to be about. It's going to be about the societal uh sort of implications, the racial implications of a black man like picking up this symbol of this shield. Um and maybe that show didn't fully deliver on that promise, but the fact that they went for it is cool.
yeah,
I appreciated that so much, and after seeing this movie, I appreciate memory of that show even more. I don't know if I'll go as far as to rewatch the whole thing, but maybe I'll pop in for an episode or two. Maybe the Isaiah Bradley one. Just because being reminded of those themes is a really good part of this movie, but it doesn't fully like go there. It
Right.
doesn't that's not what the movie's really about. It there was a moment at the beginning where I did feel like man, we really just skipped. If you didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if you just went into this movie and you saw Endgame was the last movie you saw, you're just going right into it. Like we are not dealing with any of the same story beats and character conflict that Sam went through in that show. It kind of makes the show feel a little bit necessary to the place where we find the character in this film. Because you get these little moments where he sort of hints at it, and he has these little bits of dialogue where he talks about like the expectations and that kind of thing. Um, but you don't really go there. You don't really go there. It's not about that. And so because it wasn't about that, I did try to think, well, maybe it doesn't need to be about that. Kind of going back to the whatever, what
Yeah.
are the expectations anyway? Do we need any expectations? And that's when by the time we got to Tim Blake Nelson, when we finally get that reveal, I was just like, let's just go there. Let's just
Yeah.
go full cuckoo, silly, weird mode. And then we didn't quite go there. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I think what I enjoyed about the leader stuff, because I think it gave me just enough, like because his line delivery, I mean, he's one of our best. He's one of the best character actors of all time for my money. I love
he
him every
brings it.
time. Anytime I see him in anything whatsoever, I always love him.
Pour one
And I
out for
think
Dune Part 2.
yes, please, Denis. I mean, he's a big part of the character. Count Finnering is a big part of Dune Messiah, if memory serves me right from reading that book.
Oh, bring him
I could
back.
be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. So please, Denny, please, I'm begging you. I need to see what that looks like because he's never released a picture of what it even looks like.
Yeah, because they
So
did
I would,
film, right?
oh, he's fully, I mean, I think it was with Mark Maron. He did a podcast and he talked about the experience. And he said, he's like, I don't hold a grudge because he's like, I love Denny and I love the experience. But he's like, I am bummed about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love him so much. And I think he toes the line here between being a little bit campy and a little bit silly, but he is menacing. And I liked a lot of the things that he did here, where he did genuinely feel like a formidable villain in the sense of I have like a very surface level understanding of him in the comics. I've read comics with the leader in it. I've just being like a teenager on the internet, I've watched like videos, I've seen animations, I know who the leader is. I know what his deal is. But I forgot that his thing, and I don't know if this was added into it, into this movie, but his whole thing is just being able to calculate the probability of any given situation. And he can perfectly strategize a plan just based off the most likely outcome where he succeeds. And I did find it really cool that at every turn, he doesn't obviously have the ability to fight Sam. All he can do is outsmart him and manipulate others to defend him. And I thought a lot of those moments, like the scene where they finally get to the leader's base, and you kind of get it's a bit of exposition up in the film, but I thought it was actually kind of effective where you find out the whole reason he's manipulating this plan is because Ross went to him years ago, which is established in the Civil War, where he says, I had a new lease on life. I had to get heart surgery, and it made me get a perspective on the world, which is why he introduces Sokovia Accords, because he understands how fragile the world is. And I think it goes back to that in a very like organic way. I feel like where he admits he's like, yes, I should not have gone to this guy, but he's like, I was literally scared because my heart was failing me, and I saw no other choice. So it's established that he didn't that he promised a pardon for him if he could become president. And he gave him a false sense of hope because I think deep down he knew he, after everything that happened in Harlem and the Incredible Hulk, he could not actually pardon this guy. And that gave way for the leader to kind of orchestrate the entire plan in this movie, which is a bit convoluted when, especially when you're trying to piece the dots of like, wait, what did Ross actually do or what did the leader do? It does get a
Yeah, I
bit
mean, if you're
muddled.
asking me to remember the plot of The Incredible Hulk 2008 or
Yeah,
whatever,
it's
2009, I'm just like, I'm not gonna be there with you, buddy. I am so sorry.
yeah. Yeah, I think because I mean and again, it does its best to kind of like flash back and recite things in a way that feels less like exposition, but just more eating your vegetables, kind of just being like, okay, right, yes, that did happen. But I did largely find that to be compelling because the core heart and development of the film in regards to Ross is the question of whether or not he can change, which he's been a very kind of like tumultuous, aggravating character in the MCU up until this point, where most of the Avengers hate him for what he did with the Sokovia Accords. And he has a reputation as president that like he's kind of a hard ass, and the UN kind of, is iffy on him. And yet, in all of his scenes, he feels very remorseful for his past mistakes. He feels like he wants to give Sam a chance. He feels bad for what he did in Civil War. So and that kind of paves way, I feel like, organically to have Sam's best qualities of empathy and believing in second chances to shine with how he relates to Ross as a foe, or just kind of having to go around him. So again, these aren't like perfect components or anything. I don't think it's like award-winning peak Matt Reeves level stuff, but I did find it largely compelling, and I thought the way the leaders plan orchestrated into both of these guys in their like characters, it was enough to get it like to a serviceable level for me,
Yeah,
where I was entertained. Yeah,
it's a simple through line of tension throughout the movie,
absolutely.
right? Where
Yeah,
you're in this sort of conspiracy thriller mode where Isaiah's been framed, he's in prison, he's going to be put
yeah.
on death
And
row.
that's really good too, because again, it goes to what you like about him in that show, and it really tugs the heartstrings of his
It
situation in
does.
a good way.
It's
Yeah,
effective. Those are some of the best scenes in the movie where we're setting up all that drama, all that conflict of like, oh no, you brought this guy out of
solitary
solid
confinement.
yeah. Or no. You brought him out of solitude into solitary confinement, right? Like he was
Right.
just trying to
Yeah.
mind his own business, and you told him, "Hey, go out there, be in the spotlight," and boom, now he ends up in prison, right? So all of that I thought was really good. I thought where I tripped up while we were in that was I don't think that Anthony Mackie is being done any favors with this character. I have liked him in previous movies. Like he can be a very charismatic guy. I think the first time he played this character, it was pretty good. Was it Winter
Yeah, the
Soldier?
Winter Soldier. Yeah.
That was good. Ever since then, I feel like they don't know what to do with him. And I feel like in this movie, he's just stuck like being this like robot of plot. And all of like the plot has to flow through him. And he has to be like this delivery of exposition from
Yeah.
one scene to the other. And there are these moments where he gets to let loose and be charismatic and be just light and fun. And those are some of the best parts. But anytime that they make him, be this grunt of exposition or of plot, it just does not work for me at all. And I also thought that the kid, Danny Ramirez,
Right.
I get nothing from this guy. Like it is like lead paint stare from me anytime I have to watch this guy. Like I want these two to like kiss or something. That when they're hanging out in their little falcon pad, I'm just like, do you guys sleep in the same bed? Like, can we get some action going or something? Please, dear God, this is so boring. And then you get to jump to the very last scene when he's seeing him in the hospital bed. That's when I was like, why wasn't this the movie? They're like acting their asses off right now. They're giving us an
Yeah,
actual emotional character moment that feels incredibly earned. Where was this? Why did we
I
wait
feel
until the
like
very end to do this?
I feel like if I can script doctor in a movie, I feel like, and I actually enjoyed Bucky's cameo here. I thought that was a good scene, but I feel like a better resolve to that would have been to put the ending scene where, because I agree, that's a really touching scene where he says to Sam that he didn't look up to, Steve, he didn't look up to Iron Man. He looked up to him because he saw that he could do that. He's a human being, no super soldier serum,
Yeah.
no Stark technology, no gamma radiation. He saw that what Sam did, uh, he knew he could do, and also he was inspired by the fact that Sam never stood down. I thought that was a good scene. I thought it would have been really good to have that scene. I know you'd have to like switch things around with the tension of not knowing whether or not how he was going to survive after crashing in the ocean, but have that be the scene like he visits him before any of the Red Hulk stuff happens. So that there's a little bit of extra tension when he's fighting Red Hulk, where it's like he has to persevere because of what he heard of him never backing down. Just kind of rearrange it a bit. I feel like that scene was kind of put in a little bit too late in the game, even though it is a good scene.
Maybe it
Uh,
was. Maybe that was one of the reshoots. Maybe that
yeah,
was one of the 8 times that they remade the movie where where you're saying they
yeah,
had it, and then they're like, well, we got Sebastian Stan in between Oscar campaigns right now. We have
yeah.
him for 10 minutes. Let's just slot him in.
And I did like that scene. I thought it was a cute scene, but I agree. I think it would have been more beneficial to have Torres give that bit of motivation to Sam because it feels like I don't know because that would have forged the connection more. I mean, it goes to the very end of the Winter Soldier. He crashes when helping Cap fight Bucky in the helicarrier, and he visits him in the hospital at the end, and he's playing the Marvin Gaye soundtrack as they establish when they're first running around the Lincoln Memorial. I feel like that's like these are just very and what do I know? I've never made a movie before, but these are just like things in my head that make sense to where it would have been more fluid. I like you said though, I wouldn't be surprised with all the reshoots that happened if there was a different edit of this movie. I'm very curious to see what all they scrapped because if this is like and again, I say this as a fan, I liked the movie, but if this is like the fixed version, I am so morbidly curious to see what was so bad about the original that you had to remake it. Like you had to completely haul that over.
I don't know
Like,
if it was a lot of whole cloth plot lines. I
right.
think that it was maybe um just what happens in the movie. It just this movie reeks of just like heavy ADR
Yeah.
and just like recutting and re-editing. I could tell in the very beginning, the first few minutes, the way the movie starts, the just amount of exposition, it just felt like, oh wow, this is like a band-aid on a band-aid on a
Yeah.
band-aid. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's as simple as like, oh, they just took out a character or they took out a plot line. I think it's just kind of the entire thing. They just re-stitched it. They took it apart and put it back together. Um, I am curious though, if they did take things out, what they put back in, because I did hear that the Giancarlo Esposito character was a reshoot character. Like he was not in
Yeah.
the movie at all. And then they were like, bro, Giancarlo, like we need you right now. We need to fly you in and do some scenes for this movie. And it's crazy that, you can tell a lot of his scenes are reshoots, but
Yeah.
they're not like the worst part of the movie.
No, he's
They're
completely
actually
fine in it.
not bad.
Yeah, no, it's weird because yeah, I agree with that sentiment because normally it's like the reshoot isms. Because that's what I was kind of saying earlier is like I can see where the reshoots happened, but yeah, it's weirdly not my issue because I don't think because you can tell like there's like a little bit of like especially the scene where he visits Giancarlo after they like arrest him and he has to like go to the military base where they're holding him. The backdrop of that scene is so like this is
It's
like LA,
crazy.
the LA soundstage. He's Shivas on the lunch break of the boys right now.
Yeah.
Amazon let him on set. Like just so like there is no one physically here right now.
Dude, there are
Um,
so many
but
scenes in this movie where it's just like, man, you couldn't find like a real wall. You just replaced a green screen with just a wall. Like, just find an
I,
actual wall.
I did feel that way about a lot of the White House sequences where I was like, it just was like just build
The
like a White House
outside.
set. Yeah, especially some there was like a scene. It was like the Oval Office, but like the first, or like one of the very first. Maybe it's just like the sitting so close to the IMAX screen tonight, but like the very first time he meets Ross in the movie, there's something about it that just like felt like they weren't physically in the room they were in. Like there's just like a quality to it where it felt like very copy paste.
It's
Maybe I'm
cheap.
completely wrong about
It's
that,
just cheap.
but
That's just the thing with
I,
this movie. It's like, where's the budget? Why couldn't they put a
yeah,
little bit more work and effort into that? It's probably because they burned it and reshot it like fucking 16 times, you know? That's probably
yeah.
why.
And I hate to sound like a shill here, but like even like the good ones have that quality now, where it's like they don't like I No Way Home I liked has that quality. I like Deadpool and Wolverine has that quality. I would say the only one, like literally the only movie post Endgame that looks like a real movie is what do you call it? Guardians 3. You could make the argument for Wakanda Forever. There's some really good
I'd
shots in
say
that. Coogler tries his best.
Multiverse of
Oh,
Madness.
you
There's
know,
some good
Multiverse of
stuff in that.
Madness, there is good stuff in that, but then there's also like all the Illuminati stuff where like Haley Atwell is not there.
Yeah,
You can tell that John Krasinski was literally like dubbed over like 10 different times. Like,
right.
so yeah, I mean, like Multiverse of
Shang-Chi
Madness,
has a couple good scenes
and I'm
that
saying
look
like
real.
I like a lot of those movies. It's just there's just like a uncanny valley quality to them, which and you can make a lot of arguments for earlier Marvel movies, like with especially that great. And I say this as a friend, Patrick Williams videos, great. That one he did about like why MCU movies look so gray is
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, he points out Civil
But
War. Yeah,
yeah, great video. But um, even the good ones, even which I would say Civil War is a great movie, straight up. Um, doesn't look great. So that's a consistent issue they've had, but it's never quite hit this level of where, yeah, Civil War is a little bit boring looking, and yeah, it's a little gray and washed out,
but there is
but it
effort
doesn't.
in there.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like this. Like it doesn't look like it does.
Glop.
Yeah, like just like glob, like AI almost. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like it looks
yeah.
like, yeah. So I agree with that. And this almost because there was like a report like that a lot of these like major studios were like filming movies like this for HDR optimization for like streaming and everything. And every time I see a Marvel movie, I really believe it. Like I really believe that this was shot with like a Disney Plus type camera because it has the same aesthetic as the TV show does. Like in some cases sometimes looks worse than the show
It
did.
really does, man. The one scene that got me was towards the end when the leader is like turning himself in and they have that whole back
Yeah.
and forth. I'm like, bro, you
Yeah.
cannot tell me that this is a finished, released major motion picture right now, the way this looks. This is crazy. Like, obviously, these people are in front of a green screen, and the outline, the crop on the outline of like the leader's fucked up brain head is like you can see the green screen like in the outline
Yeah.
of his head. It's just like, dude, what?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard to argue that. It's a big glaring issue with the movie. Um, yeah, this is where it gets rough to be a fan. I will say this is where the hurt comes in. All I can really say is like, in spite of all these things, where yes, you can see where they change things. Like I think that's very evident. You can see the LA sound stages all over this thing. Um, they're just I. It's hard to put it to words. There's a perseverance to it that I admired. There's like a true like, we need to give Sam Wilson a movie. And yes, you can say like, yeah, for the shareholders, and you're probably not wrong. But the optimistic part of me thinks that Kevin Feige does care about Sam Wilson
It's
at the end of the
not
day.
just the shareholders, it's also Harrison Ford's grandchildren. That's
It's
also
Harrison
who it's
Ford's
for.
grandchildren. Who, and again, though, I think if I wanted to go full cynical on this movie, it would happen if like Harrison Ford was turning in like a truly boring performance. He's good in this. Like
He's
I mean,
really good. He's having a good
he's
time. He's not
he's not
phoning
only
it in.
just he's not just like good because it's Harrison Ford and he's good even when he's bad. No, he's like, you can tell at many points he's like giving an effort into like, there's a great scene. I guess I can talk about it openly because we're in spoilers, but like I actually really enjoyed that set piece with the Celestial. The CGI was a little shoddy at times, but I did largely think like it was well executed and kind of exciting. And having that cut back and forth with like the leader on the phone with him, and he's like holding back rage
I think
in
that's
those
the best
moments.
scene in the movie.
It's so good.
Easily.
It's really effective. And just like little moments where like him on the raft at the end talking to Sam, or um like when he's on the phone with Betty
Hmm.
in the Oval Office before giving the
He's
speech.
doing
Like
his thing,
there's
man.
yeah, he's really really solid here. And luckily the movie has a lot of him. Like it's not just like a one and done kind of role. Like he is like second bill here. Like other than Mackie, he has the most screen time.
Yeah, there's another character that has a lot of screen time that we have yet
Oh
to
boy.
mention.
Oh boy. And that's for a
Uh,
good reason, I feel like.
we can't end this episode without talking about the audacity, the gall, the chutzpah, the balls on this movie. A movie that was reshot minimum 5 or 6 times
Yeah.
to continue to include the character of Ruth Seraph, Bat Seraph, also known as Sabra, played by Shira Haas, who, in the context of this movie, is the president's like security officer, like main Secret Service officer, who's also a Black Widow. Um,
Yeah.
in the comics, Sabra is a Israeli superhero,
Oof.
um, to the point where when she was originally drawn, her costume is the Israeli flag. Like it's just she's just
Jesus.
wearing the flag. And I have so many questions as to who thought it would be a good idea to include this character uh
Yeah.
in the film. And then not only that, but to continue to need to include this character through all the iterations that the movie underwent. Because let me tell you, there's nothing essential about this character. You could completely remove this character. There's actually a second security character that is
Yes.
also there
Yeah.
that gets nothing to do except like one little scene with Sam. Just make
It
her
feels
the
it feels really weird because the movie weirdly sets it up early on because he's like, I have a friend in the White House. And then their first meet, like the scene you're talking about, like the first time they're together, it kind of establishes like that there's a deeper friendship here. And the movie could have easily just, you're right, like have her be this character and then say like, and
yeah,
then that would have made it interesting if she's has to reluctantly follow the president's orders as Secret Service and hunt down her friend
right.
Sam.
Played
But
by
no, we have this
Sosha
character.
Rocamore, who I
Yeah,
thought was really good.
yeah, for the little bit of time she had in this, she's good in it. But and that would have made way more sense than whatever the fuck this character was. And I was trying to be objective about it because like I was like, okay, let me like not be online. Like if they if they don't mention anything, if she's just like a regular character, if she just happens to be Israeli, like whatever. You know what I mean?
They say it
They
in the movie.
and here's the thing, even after they said it, I was still like, okay, like, but like whatever. I just being objective, like totally objective. Terrible character, awful performance, really, really bad. Like
It,
just every line reading is rough. I don't want to, all due respect to her, I'm sure she's a nice person or whatever, but wow, what a like rough, just forced character, bad performance, terrible line readings. They try to give her some jokes, completely fall flat. There's a few action scenes where you can tell she's committed to the role, but like otherwise, just a complete whiff of a character. Never bring her back. Just booty cheeks, bad, really bad.
Indefensible. Um, I really hope that this actress, Shira Haas, has done or said or in any way like uh made some kind of statement about like the horrors committed by the Israeli government, because
Yeah,
it not a great look at all for you to come onto
yeah,
the scene as the Israeli superhero right now when
yeah,
the Israeli government and Netanyahu is doing what they're doing to Palestine, uh, for
yeah.
you to like come in and be like, "Hey, I'm the Israeli superhero in the new Captain America movie." Like, if you're a performer doing that role, like you better come correct with something. Like you better be wearing some kind of Palestine, some I don't know. I don't know. It feels incredibly in poor taste, really, really tough sit. Every single scene that she is in, I was just like, I can't do this. This is horrible. This is awful. And
Yeah.
look, yes, maybe it is unfair to put real world
I mean,
events, to hang the hook of real world events on a movie. But brother, they said in the movie she is from Israel. Like they are saying it in the movie.
yeah. No, I
You
mean,
know?
I don't disagree, and I don't think it's unfair. Like I said, I tried to be objective about it, like going into it, because I just being online and reading about things, I know it's coming. But I was like, okay, I'm like, but like, let's just like try to keep an open mind. Like maybe they edited it out for a reason. Maybe, man, it's it's there and it's bad and it's rough. And I will say the best thing I can say is that maybe it's not as bad as Twitter would make you think it is. Like it's just a quick mention, and largely it has nothing to do with her character in the movie. Like you can largely, I think, if you like the movie, you can like it's not like she's flying an Israeli flag the entire film. Like it's not like that at least. And again, I know that's like bottom of the barrel like excuses, but like I think you can get around it. But that being said, like the fact that it's there in the first place, I completely agree. It's like, what the fuck are we doing?
It
Like,
just
what the
doesn't
hell
feel
are we doing?
necessary. Like there's
It
nothing
doesn't.
about
No.
this story that begs for an Israeli superhero Black Widow. Like there's just nothing. It's not, there's nothing that's like, oh, we have to
Yeah.
have this in the movie. Like it is a crucial, like thematic
Yeah.
artistic decision or like crucial plot point to like the future of the MCU. No, no, it
No.
honestly just feels like this. Uh, there's a lot of reporting about the United States involvement, like the Department of Defense with these movies, like and in just
Yeah.
Hollywood in general. A lot of people
I
point to
remember that
things
was going
like
around with Captain Marvel, especially because she was like an Air Force pilot in that
yes,
movie.
yes, they had
Yeah.
ads, they had
Yeah.
like recruitment ads for the Air Force with Brie Larson in them. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it's not just Marvel, it's like all of Hollywood that wants to use like any type of like military equipment or anything like that, but
Hmm.
especially Marvel. So it just raises like a lot of questions about what the US government and like the Department of Defense is doing to exert their influence on these movies and like their own propaganda and support for Israel while the whole world is not supporting Israel, and then the United States continues to do it. it's just like, dude, I just want to see the Red Hulk punch.
Yeah.
What the fuck, man? Like,
No, I
I
mean
don't want to
I
be
agree.
thinking about all this when I'm trying to, like, there's already so much horrible things happening just in
Yeah.
our country. You know, I already have to look at the fucking president. They're showing me like White House president Oval Office shit, and I have to try to,
Yeah.
turn my brain off for that imagery right now.
Yeah.
So, and
No,
then
and
to have to
I
all this additional baggage, it's like, man, come on, can't we just
no,
like,
I agree. I agree with that sentiment. I mean, that's it's rough. I would completely take that out. Why they didn't do that in like the fifth round of reshoots, I do not know. But
or
like
the fourth?
what out or the fourth or the third or the second ideally, but like or actually when writing it. How about that?
Yeah,
But I think yeah, I can't excuse it. If anyone that wants defense of that character, you're not gonna get it here. I'm not pro that character, pro anything. So yeah, no, that's a very rough aspect of the movie. Um, I yeah, I mean, it's funny because like when I say like my positives with the film, they do feel very like slight positives. Like all I can really say is that I had a good time here, and that it largely was entertaining enough for me. The Red Hulk stuff, I thought, well, it's been very advertised. Like that is the selling point of this
it would have
movie.
been cool if it hadn't been, but I don't see what that marketing campaign looks like without Red
No,
Hulk.
I agree. I mean, that's I mean, and I will say like the teaser poster of like the Red Hulk hand holding the shield is very cool. So yeah, I don't blame them one bit for leaning into it, but it is very, very brief in the movie. I will say the action that does happen is pretty fun. Like it's very silly and but I mean when you write Red Hulk smashing the White House to pieces, this is what you get. I mean, it looks goofy, but it's fun. I was giggling. Like, there's a bit where he picks up the American flag and uses it like as a sword, and I was like,
Yeah.
me and Victoria were like giggling to ourselves, like we thought it was really funny. And like he pulls like a Mark Ruffalo Hulk. He's like throwing helicopters at each other. It's fun. It's. I would prefer to have like another extra 5 minutes of Hulk action because of how much they promoted it, but for what it is, it's
Yeah.
serviceable
I
enough.
could have used like an additional scene, like another little scene to sort of seal the deal with Red Hulk, because you basically get what they show in the trailer,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
There's not like a
that like
final
elongated a little bit.
yeah, there's not like a final moment there, like where he fully like beats the Red Hulk. And I get it. The point is like that he's able to calm him
Talk him
down
down, yeah.
and yeah,
Hey,
and I
big
and
guy,
that's not
sun's
lost.
getting real low.
I truly thought he was going to say that.
I would have clapped.
But
They did
I,
it.
but I did two things could be true. I could wish there was more smashy shit, but I could also appreciate the attempt at like a character moment with like him and like the Japanese cherry blossoms like floating in the air. And like yeah, Sam's like speech to him does help, but the fact that the trees remind him of his daughter and that is what truly
Yeah,
de-escalates him. Um and also
it's
proves
nice.
that he's capable of change. Again, these are not like super high nuanced
Yeah.
bars or anything.
And we
But
get
for what
shirtless
it is,
80-year-old Harrison
I
Ford.
I once again giggled in my seat when I saw Grandpappy going shirtless. But hey, he looks good for his age, so you can't fault him for it. Yeah, I mean, it feels like honestly, it's funny because like the spoiler section of this is it feels even brief because the movie doesn't have a lot to spoil. All you can really say is that like yeah, he beats the Red Hulk and the leader is behind things, but both are things you can also infer from the trailer. So we're not even really spoiling anything. Um
Yeah, not much
all
happens beyond that. There's no mid-credit scene. There's no epic Paul Rudd cameo.
yeah, the most she has like a Bucky cameo, which I mean I didn't know he was in it, but I guess if I really thought about it, I could have probably put money on that because it's like that's the most obvious person to pop up.
Right.
Um
No old
I
Steve Rogers.
no old Steve
You do get
Rogers.
the first mention of adamantium, which that was
Oh,
cool.
yeah, I forgot that yeah, so that's like the central conflict of the entire movie is that adamantium has been found within the celestial that I forgot the name of that emerged from Tiamat, I think its name is from Eternals. Um, I'm trying to. I thought that I could be getting an
You
Eternal
could be
wrong or
making that up.
something,
I
but
have no
I I
idea.
I think I'm right actually, and that's very sad for me to admit. But
I think I might like Eternals more than this movie.
oh, Eternals is I like Eternals. Eternals is a
Yeah.
very good movie. I stand Chloe Zhao in the Eternals.
We
Good movie.
are sad Power Rangers.
Good movie. Hey, that movie is like good and brooding, and it looks solid, and it's funny,
It's
and it
weird.
has.
It's different.
I like that movie. I will die on that hill. Eternals is a very good film. One of the better movies of this phase. Or of the post end game slate, I should say. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's not a whole lot to talk about spoiler wise. The most we get is like an after credit scene where you can kind of tell that they shot this around the time where the Jonathan Major situation was in flux. So he says like something along the lines of like, you don't know what's coming,
It's so vague.
and
He doesn't even
it's
say the
like
word incursion, but that's what he's talking about. He's talking about
yeah,
incursions.
he's like you think you're the only world, but what's gonna happen when you have to fight the others? So like yeah, like they clearly shot that in the sense of like it could mean Doctor Doom, it could mean Kang, it could be Secret Wars, it could be something else. Like who knows? Like it's hard to even really get hyped for it as a Secret Wars setup because it hardly even feels like that. It just feels like a blank slate. It's like it'd be like if
Insert insert here.
honestly, it really does because it's like it would be the same thing as like I don't know, like fucking Nick Fury like pop up and being like, "Hey, you better get ready, Cap, because there's a threat coming." It's like, okay, and like yeah, like there always is. Like, what are you talking about? Like show me Doctor Doom gearing up or something, like or show me like Beast. Give me Kelsey Grammer again. Like, you got to
Oh, yes.
give me some
Oh,
tangible
need me
shit
some
to get
Kelsey
excited
Grammer,
about.
dude. I mean, they said adamantium, I was hoping for a little bit more of an X-Men tease. They keep teasing X-Men. I'm just like,
Yeah.
please, please just give
Have
me
you
something.
have you read the like casting rumors that have been going around?
I saw something about, was it Kitty Pride? I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it
I
Storm? I don't know.
yeah, there was a Kitty Pride was mentioned. I didn't recognize the actress. I think it was the little girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Julia Butters. She was
Yeah, and Fablemans.
and Fableman,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
And
that would be
she
so good.
the one that really got me hyped that and I don't know if this is true. It could easily not be, but they said Harris Dickinson for Cyclops, which I thought was
Ooh,
which I
okay.
really
Baby
really
girl
like.
himself.
Yes, Mr. Baby Girl. I fucking love Cyclops as a character, and he's a world-class actor. He is so good in everything he's in. So if you can get see, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Like this is what the MCU should be right now. Like give me some good actors playing interesting characters, and that's it. Like that's all
That's
you
it,
really need.
man. That's
And
all.
that's why the MCU was good. It wasn't calling back to 2008. It was like just, and again, I say that as someone that enjoyed the movie and I liked the leader in this movie. But I, again, though, that's coming from a guy who's like, I'm saying I enjoyed it. It's a 3 out of 5. I want these to be fours again. You know what I mean? Like, I want these to be like,
God, that was a good time. It
it was
felt like
good.
we
Like,
could conquer the world.
I, like, I remember like, even when I would like leave the first Doctor Strange movie, which I think is like a fun, solid little film, I'm like, it's fun because like that ends and you're like, you know what? I still have the next Spider-Man. I still have the next Guardians. Like, there's always something on the horizon. Now it's like the horizon's a threat. It's like horizon derogatory. It's like,
Hmm.
something's always on the horizon. I don't know if that's a good thing. Like, so it's getting a little bit bleak out here. But I'm in my fuck it we ball era where I'm like, you know what? We're gonna keep watching them. I'm hoping Thunderbolts is good. I
Me too.
am
As much as I ragged on it, like I'm gonna show up for Thunderbolts. I'm gonna show up for Fantastic Four. I am increasingly worried about how good those movies will be,
Yeah.
as we approach them. We did get a cool little IMAX teaser
Yes.
of
I
Fantastic Four. That was kind of the best part of this
It was really cool.
experience.
It
That
was just a
was
little, like a little just in case I guess anyone else I can't imagine it's exclusive for critic screenings, but for anyone that didn't see this in IMAX, it's like the regular IMAX countdown from, but it starts with like four, Fantastic Four, and then it's like a theme of each character, their powers, and like a retro
and the
60s
music
like
is
theme.
the Fantastic Four
Ah,
music,
dude,
which is
when
great.
they start it with that, because at screenings they don't show trailers, so it starts with the IMAX logo with the Fantastic Four theme, and immediately I was like, dude, just play the fucking Fantastic Four. Like, let's see it right now, man. Like, I want to see this shit now. I hear your sentiment with like getting nervous about Fantastic Four. That is the one I'm allowing myself blind optimism for, just because
It needs to be good, man.
it
It needs
yeah,
to.
I agree that there is like pressure with every Marvel movie, and I do think this movie does have either fair or unfair pressure, however you look at it. That being said, with Fantastic Four, that's a true like if you fuck this up,
Hmm.
we
It's
are
over.
done. It
It's
is
over.
so I know we say that all the time, but truly, I think the consensus really is like this is it for you guys. Like, is
Yeah,
this I feel like in other ways, like in ways that Eternals never did, that Black Panther never did, that Captain America never did. Fantastic Four really does give you maybe a perspective of what these movies can be post Secret Wars after we're done with all the Doomsday shit.
absolutely.
Like
And
that's
with
your
X-Men around the corner as
and
well.
and X-Men. Yeah. So like if you don't do X-Men and Fantastic Four, right, man, we like I
They,
really think it's over.
I
Like
think
it's
X-Men they will do right because at that point it's like they might as well just close shop, like just shut it
I
all
agree. I
down.
mean, it's so easy. I mean, I say this again as someone that's never made a film, but like, I'm sorry, you have X-Men 97 as your like
Blueprint.
most critically acclaimed thing in like however many years. And there's a clear formula of what people like about the X-Men, and you're telling me you can't fucking do it? Like,
They have to.
at this point, like you have to. Either you
Yeah.
do it or I'm done. Like I really do think if they fuck up the X-Men somehow, Adam's logging out. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but if they do somehow make a bad X-Men movie after so many previously bad ones under the Fox regime, like Dark Phoenix and Apocalypse and everything, guys, Feige, get out of here. Like we're done. We had a good run, but it's over. But
Jumping
for
over
the time
to
being,
the Gunverse.
yo, listen, that Superman trailer is great. So it'll be an easy transition for me if that's as good as it
It's
looks.
great. It does look a little weird to me. Like some of the shots, like it's a little too kind of saturated and like very like hyper clear, like
I
hyper
kind of
real.
I that's something that he's really gone for, I think, post Guardians 2 with his films, because it's the same cinematographer as the Suicide Squad in Guardians 3. And I think especially the Suicide Squad, he really went for I mean it's the same aspect ratio and everything. But I feel like in the because I remember feeling that way about that trailer for that movie. And then I remember in the context of the film, I thought it was great because the aspect ratio and cinematography, it actually felt like comic panels brought to life. There's a really cool shot in that trailer with like him punching his way out of like the glass cage that Lex is holding him
Yeah.
in. And like it's a full like 360, but you're kind of like hyper close with him. And there's just something about it where I'm just like, again, it's this kind of the Fantastic Four thing where I'm like, I'm putting a lot of blind faith here, but he has truly never let me down before. Like I think all three Guardians movies are fantastic. The Suicide Squad is great. So I'm just kind of like, you know what, man? I love everything you've done. So let me just blindly believe that.
I love that
And also
it looks like a James Gunn movie. It looks
it
like
really
it looks
does.
weird. It looks like he threw in a lot of weird characters into it. I love the look of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. Like I'm there. I am, you know,
Yeah.
as apprehensive about that movie as I am Fantastic Four. Like I will
Yeah.
be I will be there and
Yeah.
I'll have my heart broken if that's what happens. But I will show up. I will show up. I will be there. I do feel a little bit weary of everything else. I am getting a little bit more selective with my slop. especially after a movie like this, Brave New World.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not gonna have as much of an open door policy with this as we move forward. We'll see. But there's always gonna be a place in my heart for this kind of stuff, and I
Yeah.
do feel like don't lump me in with the fans, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but I do think that we are quote unquote owed. That's such a dumb way to put it. That's such a fucked up
No,
way to say it. But I can't
I
think
get
of
it though.
another way
Yeah.
to say it. Like we are sort of owed this version of these characters that lives up to how bright and colorful and weird and silly and uh dark and happy and obvious and small, like all of the extremes, all of the flavors and versions that you've seen in the comics. Like it would be great to see those come to life. uh and it just
Yeah.
depends on the vision, the director, the script, the resources, the talent. There are so many more factors that happen when you're putting a movie together rather than drawing something on a comic panel. Um, but I do think that we've seen there has been these moments of greatness in something like a Guardians or what have you. It can
Yeah.
happen. So if we can find those moments to have it pop off, God, it would be amazing.
It would be. I mean, I think that is like the dangling carrot that is Secret Wars right now, which serves as a potential reset for the universe. I think that is something they sorely need. Not only just because I feel like losing a lot of your prime characters that gives you the excuse to like kind of recast and reboot where necessary, but also I mean, I get what you mean, like the ideal promise of what Marvel as a collective universe could be. Because when we started this thing, Feige didn't have the rights to the X-Men. He didn't have the rights to Fantastic Four. He didn't have Spider-Man. Now it's like imagine yourself as the architect of something where you do have all the building blocks at square one again. Um, and I think if done correctly, and it could so easily not. So I don't want to sound blindly optimistic, but if you do Secret Wars right and you make it a satisfying conclusion to this era and you pave way for a reboot, because that again, if you read the Hickman Secret Wars without spoiling it, I like the core message of that comic is that change is good and only good but necessary. Sometimes it's good and okay to start over. And if you can, and again, I just don't trust them to convey that message. But if you can even get a semblance of what Hickman did in that run, we're so good. Like that's all you really need. Um,
I still need to
and
finish it. I'm looking at it
yeah,
on my shelf
I
right
was I
now.
was trying to be vague because I knew you were reading it, so I don't want to like I don't think that spoils anything, but that I do think that is the because I mean putting in the context of like back in I think it came out in 2015 if memory
Yeah,
serves me
that sounds
right.
right.
And around that time, Marvel was really going through an identity crisis, comics wise, very similar to how they're going through one right now, film wise. Where ironically they're doing really good comic wise right now, bad film wise now. So it's really funny. But in the context of the Marvel machine back then, they were going through on the aftermath of DC doing the new 52 and the controversy there and constant reboots and characters dying and being resurrected. Marvel was in a similar position where they were just killing characters, resurrecting them, rebooting, getting different writers, and no real continuity. And you get Hickman in there to make a very meta story about the mess that it is, but to shine light on the fact that there is beauty in the mess and that these characters resonate not just because they sell toys, but because they inspire us to be better humans. And that is why I think it is the best Marvel story ever written. I think it is like the pinnacle of comic book writing for Marvel. And I know that's high praise, but I truly believe that. I think it is like that and his Avengers run and his Fantastic Four run. I'm just like a Hickman dick writer. Shout out to Ultimate Spider-Man. I love
It's
it.
really good.
Uh, but so yeah, like I love that shit. And if they can somehow convey that same message, um, I'd be a happy camper is all I can say. And I'm holding on hope that they can do something like that.
So, they announced that the Russos are coming back to do Avengers
Yes.
Doomsday and Secret Wars. Those are on the schedule for 2026 and 2027. I doubt that they'll stay there. I mean, it's I know that the
Yeah.
shareholders need to retain their value and whatever, and there has to be something that comes out next year. We're getting three this year, so that'll be plenty. But right now, they're saying that the Doomsday's for 2026, and also apparently there is a Spider-Man movie directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who did Shang-Chi, also
Sure.
slated for 2026. Um,
Yeah.
which we'll see what that is. Some people have
I
speculated
hope it's
that
good. Yeah.
Toby and Andrew will return. Other people have speculated that the Fantastic Four maybe might make an appearance in that film. I don't
Please
know.
need that. Just like at least just to like give us the iconic like I mean that's the very first issue of Spider-Man that he ever appeared in was I can't remember the name of it,
The
but
bag,
like
the brown
it's
bag.
the iconic, yeah, it's the brown bag on his head and
Yeah,
Human Torch flying around the lab. Yeah, it's iconic. It's the very first comic I ever saw as a kid. Like it's quintessential. So if you can somehow tie that in and make that meta, that yeah, hell yeah. See, this is the shit that I like. This is what makes me happy about all this nerd shit. Like the possibility of all this stuff. So I maybe it's this glimmer of hope that makes me forgiving. I don't know if that's the proper word because I do like this movie. I don't feel like I'm pitying it. I did enjoy my time with Brave New World, but it does make the 3 out of 5s feel worthwhile. You know, like if we can get back to a place where like we get consistent, even just 7 out of 10s or like 4 out of 5s, you know, again, and we get like an end game every now and then, you
that would be
know.
nice. I
That's
mean,
all I really
at this
need.
point, it doesn't. The Endgame was Endgame because of everything that came before it to lead up
Yeah.
to it. Right now, we're not getting that lead up. So
Yeah.
I don't know what has to happen between now and Secret Wars for there to be some
Dog,
type of lead up, but
let me
it's
tell
not
you.
happening right now. Is
Let me
it
tell you, you
Armor
get
Wars?
it's fucking Vision Quest. No, I think truthfully, if I'm the new Kevin Feige, I just put all and I when I tell you all, Ernest, I mean all my stock in the X-Men saga. We got we're gonna do the Phoenix saga. We're gonna do Apocalypse. We're gonna do every fucking
All
thing
out. Yeah.
all out. And you're gonna get Mr. Sinister in that bitch. You're gonna get Norman Osborn leading the Dark Avengers. You're gonna have Spider-Man. You're gonna have Miles Morales in there. You're gonna have the Fantastic Four fully like you just all this shit, all this Gonzo shit that people like me, the nerd that played Marvel Ultimate Alliance every day in 2006. You're gonna get that
Oh,
shit,
did
and
you
you're gonna
play the
make
second one though? Because the second one was better.
that's the best one. Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say because I honestly forget that there's this. I always think the second one is just the only game. I honestly forgot that
No,
there
it
is a
had more
first one.
characters.
I agree that I used to even when I didn't play it, I don't know if you remember this like the cut scene at the beginning that like shows like all the action with all the characters. I used to just like watch that on a loop when I
Oh
didn't even
yeah.
want to play the game. I used to just watch that on YouTube or whatever. But yeah, I'm just like I've wanted this shit my entire life. So if you can find a way to make that cohesive again, then hell yeah. Hell yeah. I think it's very doable.
We'll see. We'll see, man. We'll see if we get Blade. You think we'll ever get Blade?
Oh,
Mahershala?
Marshall's never doing it. I'm sorry to say. He's it is we're going on next year 7 years since he was announced.
Oh, that's
Um,
not
that
happening.
is that's not happening. I'm sorry to say. I think even Mahershala's lawyer said something publicly about it. He's like, I've never seen something like this happen in Hollywood, which is a crazy thing for a fucking lawyer to say if your actor is happy. Um, so yeah,
I mean,
no,
that just tells you so much about where Marvel is at right now. That they can't
I
make
think
guy kills vampires. Like they can't make that work.
it's ridiculous. I think the most you get with Mahershala as Blade is like a Channing Tatum as Gambit or something at some point. Like you get
Ugh.
him in like a multiverse thing, but Yeah, I mean, and all due respect to Mahershala, he's too old now, and I think even he knows that. I don't think he wants to start his tenure at Marvel now. I think he wanted to fucking start it at Comic-Con in 2019 when he was
Yeah,
there.
and get it going, right?
I don't remember what I was doing in 2019. I doubt he wants to be tied to that. So yeah, no, God. So I guess I'll leave it at that. I'm hopeful for the future. As for this individual movie, 3 out of 5, kind of sloppy, but enough there. I had a good time tonight. Maybe it was seeing in the IMAX theater, press only screening, so there wasn't like a huge audience or anything. It felt like very like I could just enjoy the movie in
It
peace,
was
and
better than
I did.
Wolfman. It was
Yes.
I'll give it that. It feels better to go into the theater to watch something a little bit more competent than Wolfman 2025.
I mean, it is shock to no one if you listen to me and Ernest pod about Wolfman, but I agree. It was definitely better than Wolfman. There are very few films that I think are worse than Wolfman in the last like 12 months. So
Also, I didn't
I think
realize that this director also did the Cloverfield Paradox.
yeah, he did that. He did Loose, and there's probably something else I'm forgetting. Or maybe it's just those two. I could be
Those are
wrong
the
about that.
major ones. There's something
Okay,
called The Girl is in Trouble.
didn't see that
I'm not
one.
sure what that
Uh,
is. I don't know if
yeah,
I like this movie more than Cloverfield Paradox. Cloverfield Paradox was pretty bad. That was a real rough one. Uh,
I thought that was really bad. I hated that. But I didn't like Loose, to be honest. I thought that was one of those like movies that I appreciate what it was going for, but the execution, I just thought it was a little bit hammy. So I take no pleasure in saying that the Marvel movie is his best film so far,
I
for my
asked
money.
you when this movie ended if you've ever seen the franchise, but if any of your listeners have seen the franchise, they know that it does a excellent job at spoofing the behind the scenes of what happens in these movies and the
Yeah,
role of the director and how capable the director is of actually directing the movie, and how the
yeah,
Feige figure sort of exerts his power over the whole thing. And even going back to like the Israeli character, like how something completely outside the bounds of even the studio or the industry can infiltrate itself into the production of the movie. An episode where they have to essentially put product placement of a Chinese tractor into the movie because of like a trade
yeah.
war with China happening with like, the
I
government.
yeah.
They do it.
It's funny. That's from the oh god, what's the guy's name? He did like In the Loop and
Yeah.
Veep, right? Is
They
it the
it's
Veep
the
guy?
Ian Nucci verse. It's all the guys
Right.
that worked
I
on yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I like him. And the thing is, I didn't even hate what I saw of the first episode. I think I was just like genuinely tired. And I remember the episode began with like almost, I think it was like a one take sequence where they're going through a film set.
Yeah.
And I think it was like 1 a.m. or something. I was like, dude, I don't have the energy for this right now. I'll circle back to it. And then the reviews were so bad that I never did.
Yeah,
But
it's not the best show ever, but it it contextualizes a lot of what we talk about when we
right.
talk about these movies, where it kind of gives you that peek behind the curtain of like, why did these things turn out the way they do? Because no
I,
one sets out to
yeah,
make a bad movie. No one goes into these things
yeah,
saying like, we're going to make a piece of garbage. Like, that's not what it is.
yeah,
It's an insane amount of external factors and chaos and rushing to try to get a product done without thinking about all the little steps, all the little pieces in between that have to be right. All the many things that can possibly go wrong on the set of a movie. So it's fascinating. I recommend it. It's,
yeah.
it's not the best show ever, but it's just for this niche of this particular thing we're interested in,
No,
it's very
yeah.
enlightening. Uh, One
I'll,
thing I will say about it though is that it's a lot of crazy things happen on the show, but I don't think it gets to the point of like Ezra Miller is on the run from the law
that is so
while
funny. Yeah,
having to promote the Flash.
Yeah, I think if they ever did a season two, they would have to tap into that. I so I'll give two recommendations off that, and I guess we're gonna wrap it up. But one I can't fully talk about it because it's embargoed, but I have watched a few episodes of Seth Rogen's Apple TV series, The Studio,
Oh, nice.
which um I cannot say anything about it other than that it's very similar to what you're describing with that show. Like a lot of what you just said is how I felt about that, or how I thought about like the episodes I saw of this, like in the themes of like no one sets out to make a bad movie. So all I'll say, and you can read between the lines of the fact that I'm recommending it to whether or not I liked it, but if that sounds interesting to you and you want to see like the sneak peek of how stuff like this happens and like how IP stuff like really works in Hollywood, I think the studio is very interesting in that regard. So I think that comes out in April. So definitely check. It's a little bit of a wait, but definitely check it out when it comes out. Another thing I'll recommend, and I'm surprised I've never recommended this on a podcast before. I believe it was last year. A book came out called MCU: The Reign of Marvel Studios by Joanna Robinson,
Oh,
Dave Gonzalez, and
nice.
Gavin
That's been on
Edwards.
my list. I've been meaning to get to that.
Very fascinating book. It really puts you front and center in to pretty much almost every production up until um I can't remember where the cutoff is. I think it's around like Eternals or something. But
They stopped
they
talking to her. They're like, we have shit to do.
yeah. But it's yeah, though they get pretty far. I mean, they get very past like COVID and Endgame and all that shit. So but really the most interesting stuff is like the behind the scenes of how Feige started the Marvel Studios, how he was a comic fan and a movie producer and somehow found his way into actually making superhero stories. And also like one of the best chapters is like the production of the Avengers and the premiere of it and how that blew up in ways they never expected. And yeah, it's just a very fascinating read. I mean, if you made it this far into the pod and you like hearing me and Ernie talk about like the productions and stuff, I cannot recommend that book enough because it is really informative and very entertaining too. I've read it in like 2 days, and it's not a short book. Like it's very meaty. I just like literally could not put it down. So
I love
definitely check that
Joanna.
out.
She's one of my favorite podcasters.
I like her a lot. Yeah.
Everything she does is great. She did a podcast on Lost, where she recapped every single episode of Lost over
That's awesome.
um I was like around COVID times. And I just rewatched all of Lost myself last year, so I went back and heard her coverage. She's the best.
She's great. I when she announced that she was writing that book, I remember I pre-ordered almost a year before it came out because I was so excited because I know how extensive she is with shit. So when I found out she was reading that or writing that book, like it was supposed to be like ideally the definitive like oral history of
Yeah.
Marvel Studios. And it is like it truly is that. So if that interests you, definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun to read and very insightful. I will say I think I watch these movies differently having like read that book.
Okay.
Um,
I'll
so
check it
it's
out.
good stuff.
After I
Uh,
finish Hickman Avengers.
yes, that should be your priority, especially
Yeah.
before seeing whatever they do with Secret Wars in the next 2 to 3 years or whatever. But that's yes, I agree. That should be your priority. And also, you know what? Just because I'm feeling generous, like I said, I recommend Ultimate Spider-Man. And if I had to plug another Marvel thing, read Avengers Twilight. I can't remember the uh author of that, but it's about a future where there's like Ultron bots patrolling the street.
Oh, it's
And
Chip Zdarsky.
yes, I couldn't remember the guy's name.
Oh,
So
nice. He did
it's
yeah, he's done a bunch of great stuff.
yeah, it's basically a future where Iron Man's gone, Thor's off world. I can't remember what happened to Bruce Banner, but a majority of the Avengers are gone. And Captain America, Steve Rogers, is retired. He's like 70, 80 years old, but he still has the super soldier serum, so he's strong, but he's just living as a civilian because robots and AI have completely kept the streets safe. At least that's what they want you to think. And something goes haywire, and the very few humans that are remaining, call to Cap for help to pick up the shield again and overthrow like this AI regime. And it is fantastic. I read the entire series in one sitting because I was so engrossed with it, and I thought it was very moving. exciting, and truly unlike anything I've ever read before. So
Love
I
that.
like after giving kind of a mid review to Captain America, I want to give some hope to Marvel because if you want to read good stories or if you want to hear good stories about Marvel, it's not always on the screen. Sometimes it's like actually just picking up a comic and reading really good stuff. You could go like to the Hawkeye run from a few years ago or something. Like there's just so much. Get a Marvel Unlimited subscription and go ham because if you ever feel disappointed by the films, there's always so
Yeah,
much
the
material
source.
to look into.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe
go
once
to it.
I finish the Hickman run, we can do a comics pod
Dude, you
and
would
talk.
not be able to you'd not be able to shut me up, dude. I would like yap for hours.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, because I'd love to talk about his Fantastic Four run that I read recently as well. And
It's
yeah,
so good.
I've been meaning to get into Avengers Twilight, and just I've been hearing, like you said, they're on a great run right now. Like they did like an Alien comic
I need to
uh
read that. But
that
everything I
apparently
see
is
from it looks
amazing.
yeah, every screenshot or Twitter post I've seen about it has is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I need to read that.
Sweet. Hell yeah. Comics are
Yeah.
cool.
Comics are great. I recommend Marvel Unlimited and also DC Infinite. That two great prices. I sound like I'm sponsored. I swear I'm not. I'm just a comic fan that likes comic history, and please check it out when you can.
In
Or
these trying times, uh comics can be a really nice
yeah,
escape.
or go to your local library and find an omnibus or something. Read the classics. Just look into it. It's a lot of fun. It's great escapism, great stories.
I
Great thing.
like using the Hoopla app because it's
Hoopla's
free.
great.
All you need is
Yeah,
a library card, and they have
yeah,
digital comics on there. So
yeah.
I'm actually gonna add Avengers Twilight right now
Please
to
do.
my
Yeah,
list.
shout out to Hoopla, shout out to Libby. We love free public reading. We love accessibility.
Support your
Hell
local
yeah.
library.
If there's any note to leave the Brave New World podcast on, it's support your local library and keep
There
it
you
funded.
go.
Absolutely. Because then we wouldn't get any more of these movies because they run on
Right.
source material. Yeah, so please. Is that it? I mean, we pretty much covered it.
I think we did it.
Yeah, 3 out of 5, good time for the most part. If it went on an extra 20 minutes, maybe I'd be more cynical, but it's hard to be annoyed when it felt like time didn't really, it felt really quick. I was entertained. I laughed a few times. Whatever. Sure. Let's do it. Bring on Thunderbolts.
To
I'm
the next one.
to the next one. Ernie, thanks for coming on the pod with me, man. You're always
Happy to do it,
welcome.
man.
And also, I guess, for having me on the video feed. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cross pod here. Films for Breakfast X Wabam on the YouTubes. Happy to do it.
Absolutely. Where can everyone find you online?
Well, if you're listening on the Films for Breakfast audio feed, and you didn't listen to our Brutalist pod, or our Wolfman pod, um, you'll be fancy to know that I have been hosting a podcast called We Bought a Mic for many years, and Adam's been on it, many times. So check us out at weboughtamike.net. That's the website. We Bought a Mic on YouTube, where we'll also be posting this conversation as a video exclusive. So check us out there. We just did our Listomania extravaganza where we did mega pods, two-parter pods on our favorite movies, TV shows, and albums of 2024. So lots of content there for you to check out, recommendations of our favorites, our top tens. And then we just did also the Wabamies, which is our annual award show where we hand out fun awards to commemorate the year. And then looking forward at our hype draft, just our most anticipated things of the upcoming year. No Marvel things drafted in our hype draft, unfortunately. I did not ride for Marvel or Superman, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
if you listen to this thinking that I would be a fan, maybe check and see what other things I might be a fan of. Maybe a 28 years later, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe Andor season 2, that kind of thing. I can still be a fan. I can still like some slop, you know. Like I said, I like to pick and choose. So yeah, listen to that. Check out all our thoughts, and I'm excited to be back for whatever you have me on next, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. To quote the great Kendrick Lamar, when shit hits the fan, is you still a fan? Um, you can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, all the good stuff, Instagram at Adam Not Sandler. You can follow the pod. It's in the podcast description, but it's Films for Breakfast on same thing, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram. Yeah, I mean, I try to update weekly. There will be a few weeks here and there where, just full transparency, that like Last Breath movie with Simu Liu and Woody Harrelson, not seeing that shit. So I'll probably take a week off here and there. But for any major release, I'm going to try to have an episode up each week. And I'm lucky that we had the screening tonight, so we can do it before the embargo even drops. So that's very nice. But yeah, so until next time, I guess the next big one is God. So I know
Black Bag.
coming up, Black Bag, we're definitely going to do. My good friend Johan, who was on, he basically put a gun to my head and said, let me get on every Soderbergh episode.
All the
So you can
Soderberghs.
on all the Soderberghs. But like just to, I guess, promote what I have coming up. My good friend Julia is coming on for Paddington in Peru. She texted me the second I launched the
Nice.
podcast, and she said Paddington now. I'm like, okay, absolutely, you're down. My writer Kate, that I've had join the site recently. She's coming on for The Monkey, which we're seeing tomorrow. So that'll be fun. So yeah, lots to look forward to.
Okay,
And
there's some good stuff.
there's some good
It's not
stuff.
all dire. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no,
ramping
I'm
up.
I'm optimistic. We got Mickey 17.
That's soon.
Uh,
And Sinners, both of those around the corner.
Sinners. Yeah, I already have guest booked for all those. So people are down to talk movies, man. And also just for anyone that's been listening consistently, I've seen the ratings go up each week. The Brutalist that we've done is my most popular one so far. So to
Brutalist
everyone's
boys.
excited to talk movies. So I'm very excited and I'm very thankful. So if you've made it this far and you continue listening each week, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I really appreciate it. But yeah,
Hell
until
yeah.
next time, guys, I'll see you for, I guess, Paddington, Peru. I'll see you in Peru. Bye, guys.